I'm a busy guy. I'm teaching men how to fly, and you call me up here again.
I don't like to bother you, Joe. But I'm pretty busy myself. That's why I sent for you. Pilot's heaven is getting too crowded. I can't accommodate them all. This place is getting as bad as a Washington hotel.
Listen, Pete, I got troubles of my own. We're trying to win a war.
Well, all I got to say is that unless those pilots stop coming up here...
All right. Okay. I'll go in and have a talk with the boys and see if they have any ideas.
Now, Joe, remember, rules is rules. Oh, Joe, you ought to feel flattered just to be up here. You're a privileged character. You're the first live pilot that's ever seen these heavenly portals.
Listen, Pete, I got a right to be up here. These are all my boys. I taught them all how to fly. Yeah, there they are. Know most of them by their first names. Bob, Dick, there's Pinky. They might have been great flyers, but they made mistakes. In their young enthusiasm, they just didn't pay much attention to the rules of flying safety. Yes, they were careless, thoughtless, tried reversing the field, didn't observe local traffic. Take Art there, getting a GI haircut a la heaven. He's up here because he didn't use his flaps correctly. Well, he's got plenty of time to think about it now. And Gil, he's still trying to see the field he overshot. And look at Vince. He thought he could stay at 25,000 feet without oxygen. Well, Pete, I hope you're trying to make him happy.
We try to give them everything. But the two things they're really itching for, we can't provide. One is flying, and the other is...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I get it.
And why don't you do something about it? What kind of an instructor are you, anyhow? These boys keep coming up here, cluttering up the place. I get complaints from A4. They can't provide enough supplies. And the quartermaster's griping, too.
Now, listen, Pete. I taught these boys all the rules. I gave it to them right out of the Bible. But they either got careless or they forgot. They had to learn the hard way. Now, you take number 0725257. You know how he landed up in pilot's heaven, Pete. It started when he was at Stanley Field. He was very conscientious at first. Then he began to relax. Result, the 8-ball. And here's how it all happened. One day he was coming in for a landing. Yup, made a perfect approach. Flew that airplane very skillfully. Had his eyes open, coming in great shape. Then his wheels touched the ground and he started rolling in. He thought the flight was over just because he was on the ground. So what did he do? He took off his earphones and began relaxing while his plane was still rolling. Mr. Nonchalant pulled his tie in place and, get this, unfastened his safety belt. Grabbed Form 1 even before the plane stopped. He forgot what every veteran flyer knows, that a landing is not finished until the wheels stop rolling. That's how Mr. Nonchalant got into pilot's heaven, and that's getting in the hard way. Yes, sir. There's nothing the enemy would like better than to have every pilot forget that a landing is not finished till the wheels stop rolling.
That's right. A landing is not finished until the wheels stop. Say, don't teach me, teach them. Keep them out of here.
How am I going to make it any plainer? I tell them every single day, but some pilots just never learn. Take who's it's over there, Jimmy Blake. Well, one thing we can say about Jimmy, he finally got his wing. But there's a lad who might have been a great flyer. He was itching to see Tokyo, but never got any further than Corey Field. You see, he had his own ideas about making a landing. Yes, there he was, about ready to come in. And when the pilot's on the home stretch, his judgment on altitude and distance is very important. But as we said, Jimmy had his own ideas. There's the field, see it? But Jimmy's too far away. Don't think he can make it at that altitude. But Jimmy has other ideas, bad ones. He forgot to clear his engine, and that's a mistake. Jimmy's on a long glide, and his nose is too high. The field keeps slipping under his nose. She won't take it. He waited too long to clear engine. Better not try, Jimmy. You're too low. And stretching a glide is a dangerous thing. Now when he needs the gun, it isn't there. He might get over. He might not. Look at that reduced airspeed. No wonder he stalled.
Hey, a crash!
to you, all the flying going on down there is a pretty discouraging business.
No, Pete, I'm only telling you about the chumps. The guys that make unnecessary mistakes. You see, the wise boys know all the rules, and they're all right. But the chumps seem to think that playing safe is a sissy's game. Pete, the safety rules are the best friends a pilot can have. Like, for example, here's an old friend.
Who? What do you mean?
This is our old friend, Mr. Oil Temperature Gauge. And to a smart pilot, he's very important. And he always has the last word. Every intelligent pilot knows that. But here comes a pilot who didn't think so. And that was his first mistake.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sir.
And bumping into his CO was his second mistake. He's one of those hurry-up boys with propellers in his pants. Man, he just can't wait to get upstairs. Preparing for flight is just a waste of time for him. He wants to be the big pie in the sky. Check the oil temperature? Strictly for beginners, kindergarten stuff.
Clear. Clear.
Yeah, it's clear that this pilot is going to take off with cold motors, and that's his biggest mistake. And right there in front of him, warning him, is our old friend, Mr. Oil Temperature Gauge, almost down to zero. Hear that engine? Colder than a Russian winter. But a cold engine doesn't mean anything to a hot pilot like him. Or does it?
Hey, something's up.
Yeah, something's up all right, but it isn't your oil temperature gauge. There she goes, and he's too low to recover from that stall. Well, hold on, brother. It won't be long now.
Oh. 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 Hey, what's the matter with you, you dope? Do you think Uncle Sam trained you for months just to crack up? And you're darn lucky you're alive to hear me tell you. Never take off on a cold day until I'm up to 40 degrees centigrade.
You see what I mean, Pete? The last word. And it's a wise word. Never take off until the engine is warmed up to 40 degrees centigrade. Oh, hello, Bob.
How are you, sir?
How's the new hangar coming along, Bob?
Fine, just fine. One more cloud, we'll have it all finished.
I've just been telling St. Peter about those hurry boys.
Oh, well, you must be talking about me then.
Well, Bob...
Oh, sure, I know. I was always in a hurry. But then one day, me and Charlie Sayers, you remember, we were delivering that B-24 job over to Marchfield.
Yes, I remember. You and Charlie Sayers. That was a big moment for you, taking that B-24. The thrill of flying that sky giant really had you hopping. Well, of course, those four-motor jobs are exciting, but you've got to treat them with care. Your fingers were just itching for those controls. You couldn't bother about a little thing like a checklist. You were in the big time, king of the cockpit.
Check form 1.
Okay.
Crew chief report.
Okay.
Seats, pedals,
Okay.
fuel cocks, cross feed valve.
Okay, Skip'em.
Now, wait a minute. You'd better listen and check these things. Flight controls.
Oh, come on. I know this routine by heart. We're off, brother, for the wide blue yonder.
Okay, pilot. You asked for it. You're the king.
She won't even budge.
You should have checked those flight controls.
Huh?
just like that. Brother, what a smack. Look, Joe, if you run into any pals of mine, give them a tip for me, will you? Tell them to check that checklist, even if they've got $5,000. Check it.
That's what I tell them now. Make your check or break your neck. Well, it's pretty obvious where we are now. It's one of those typical gay spots you see in any city in America, where young people like to dance, or, as they say in the vernacular, to cut a rug. And naturally, a lot of Uncle Sam's boys are right on hand. The armed forces seem to be having a few maneuvers, and very interesting maneuvers, too. Yes, that's quite a gay throng. And in this group, there's one fella we'd like to tell you about. See him? There. That's Jack Pilot, and he's having himself quite a time. Boy, he's really in a dream world. But who wouldn't be dancing with that dream? Her hair brushing up against those silver wings. Yes, sir, it's one of those romantic moments, and Jack Pilot's got it bad. This was on a Friday night, and that was okay. But the next day, Saturday, Jack Pilot was flying, and you can tell by that silly puss he's got his mind on everything but his airplane. Right now, he's starting his approach glide. And right now, Jack ought to be thinking about letting his wheels down. But here's what Jack has on his mind. He put his flaps down all right, but his wheels are still up. He's so far out of this world, even the control tower can't get him. And that, my friends, is called doping off the dope.
He walked away from that one all right, but he won't dope off again.
Yeah, Pete, that's the way it goes. We're trying to impress every pilot that when he gets into that cockpit, he's got to forget everything else and devote his attention to only one thing in the world, his airplane.
Got a match? Guess I ran out of fuel.
Them lighters are the devil's doing.
No, Pete, the lighters are okay, if you keep them filled with fuel. The same goes for a plane. Now look at Hank Smith there. You'd think he'd know better by this time.
Thanks.
But he's still out of gas. And there's no excuse for that. Let me tell you about Hank Smith. There he was, a flyer in a country with the greatest resources in the world. Under the rich earth of this country, there's a gigantic storehouse of fuel. The enemy would sacrifice 1 million men to get their mitts on it. Of course, maybe some folks only have an A car and have to skimp along on a few gallons of gas a week. But that's because we need every gallon of fuel for our fighting forces. For your airplane, for every plane in the sky. That maze of mechanisms, pipelines, tankers. From America's vast pool of resources, gasoline is piped, trucked, and railroaded to our airfields and theaters of operation. Billions of barrels of gas and oil so each crew can fly with safety and carry out its mission. So that each pilot can zoom through the sky and can stay in the sky. But this fella, Hank Smith, runs out of gas. How do you like that? Well, here's how it happened. Hank was rushing out to his airplane slick and quick. The fuel record in Form 1 was far from his mind. He was in that cockpit with a flourish. And right there, giving out with a nifty signal, too.
Clear?
Clear. Chapter 1 in the sad saga of Hank Smith. And now for Chapter 2. Hank is sitting in the sky like a regular flying gent. But Hank has overlooked a certain little thing. Yes, Form 1's in there, and if he'd checked Form 1, he would have seen that his gas tanks were nearly empty. But Hank didn't check Form 1. And maybe that's why his plane began to drop. Yeah, she's sort of drifting down. And there's no use trying that second gas tank. That's empty, too. the downgrade. Poor old Hank with an empty tank. Throttle away, chum, it won't help. Down she goes, and where she lands, nobody knows. Ah, but much too late. He thinks of Form 1. He sees it in black and white, no gas. Look at that local scenery. That's not our idea of a convenient landing field, but he's hell-bent for it. Down, down, down. Well, you finish the story, Pete.
All I can say is angels don't fly. From what you said, Joe, Form 1 is safety insurance.
You can say that again.
I certainly will say it again if it'll keep that crowd out of here. Your flying will be done if you don't check Form 1.
And check it every time you get into your plane.
Well, wait a minute. It can't always be just carelessness. Now, you take Carrie Jones over there. He's one of the most cautious pilots I ever entertained. Look how he plays gin rummy.
Yeah, we called him Careful Carrie. And he was the same way in a plane. Oh, Carrie Jones is cautious, all right. He was one of my brightest lads. A swell flyer. Always used his head.
I don't get it. If Jones had used his bean, how come the gentleman is a guest of mine?
Well, that's just the point. It wasn't Carrie Jones. It was...
Pilot McGuire, 14637 to Maxwell Tower.
Yep, that's McGuire, all right, coming in for a landing. He's too high, but he's coming in just the same. Hey, that ground came right up and slapped him in the face. Well, he's finally safe and sound on old terra firma. But after that bumpy arrival, McGuire ought to make a little checkup. Aha, a sprung landing gear.
Pardon me, sir. Is everything okay? Oh, yeah. Fine. Okay.
Now, there's a pilot full of foolish pride. He saw that he had damaged the landing gear. But it isn't always what you see that's important. It's what you don't see. And what McGuire didn't see was the injury to the wing. That's why he should go directly to the operations office and report the damage he had caused. That's the safest check. Report the damage.
Captain, that landing I made, I leveled off too high and dropped in. I got out and looked around and found I had sprung the right landing gear attachment fitting.
Make sure it's reported on Form 1.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's what McGuire should have done, but he didn't. Instead, he was too proud to go into the operations office. He was ashamed to admit the fact that he had damaged the landing gear with a clumsy landing. So what did he do? He wandered across the grounds, taking his time, came to the operations office, and decided to skip it. Yes, he just kept on nursing his pride and headed for his car. He's got a twinge of conscience, all right, and well, he should. There's no place in the Air Forces for a flyer who puts vanity before human lives. There's Carrie Jones, McGuire's pal. Hey, McGuire! And that's the irony of it. Carrie Jones took off in the very same plane his pal McGuire had damaged. But how much damage? Well, that's what McGuire didn't see. His bad landing had injured the wing structure. So there was Carrie Jones flying along out to test a new accelerometer. And Carrie put the plane into a vertical dive, never realizing that his wing had been weakened. This is what happened. Yes, it was sabotage, all right. Carrie Jones was sabotaged by his best friend.
Pardon me for interrupting, sir, but...
Say, how'd you get in here?
Who, me? I'm 100% American. I love my country, and I'm patriotic. Confidentially, the draft board nailed me.
Well, what do you want, Angel?
Would you please, would you please okay that entry?
Lieutenant Edward Sloan. Did he just register?
Yes, sir.
Take him over to the officers' club and introduce him to the fellas. No. Find out if he's a short snorter. Lieutenant Sloan. Anyone you know, Joe?
Eddie Sloan? Sure. Don't you remember? I wired you last night to reserve a room for him. I knew he'd be checking in today.
You knew?
Sure. I happened to be in the operations room yesterday.
It was one of those busy mornings crammed with work. Pilots were in and out, all having a final look at the Airways bulletin board, because it lists all obstructions and new developments at other airports. No pilot takes off on a mission before consulting that bulletin. That is, no pilot except Lieutenant Sloan. Guess he wasn't in the mood that day. I remember stopping.
Hey, Eddie. Where are you headed for?
Who, me? Why, I'm taking a new observation plan up to Bolton.
Don't you think you better check the Airways bulletin?
Nah, I just got back from Bolton. I know that feel like my own backyard.
He knew that feel like his own backyard. Yeah, it's a common ailment, Pete. Yet it's a cardinal rule in flying safety. Never take off for a field until you consult the Airways bulletin board.
Otherwise, you'll wind up whaling the Airways bulletin board blues.
Blues, those fighting blues, those fighting red, white, and blue. There's a guy in the sky, and my heart's beside him. He's traveling high with my love to guide him. Giving those devils their dues, that's the red, white, and blue.
What goes on? 1 minute we're in pilot's heaven. Now we're suddenly in the middle of a Broadway musical show. And every seat is filled. No, not every seat. Oh, yes, I remember. Pilot Andy Brown and his wife had tickets for tonight. But his tickets are in the box office just going to waste. Andy couldn't make it. Why? Because his carburetor iced up on him. And if you don't believe it, look who's come to the show in Andy's place. It's Mr. Carburetor himself. You see, Andy forgot to check his carburetor temperature gauge. And that's why Mr. Carburetor is still shedding icicles. Now listen to what he has to say.
If I was running this show, here's what the next act would be.
Gentlemen, there will be fewer carburetor icing casualties if you'll just remember that this gauge is your friend to warn you of possible icing conditions. A carburetor is in effect a small refrigerator. Ice may form in its throat at outside air temperatures as high as 29 degrees centigrade, particularly if the air is moist. But ice will surely form if the temperature within the throat of the carburetor is in the vicinity of freezing. The danger zone lies between the minus 10 degrees and 3 degrees centigrade, and is marked in red on most instruments in use. The desirable carburetor air temperature is just above the danger zone, between 3 degrees and 5 degrees centigrade, and is usually marked in green. While any temperatures above 3 degrees are safe, it is best to bear in mind that higher carburetor temperatures are not desirable due to the loss of volumetric efficiency. You got it? Okay, remember it.
Come over here, Joe. Looks bad. Looks like I'm going to have another tenant. One of your pilots is going to get himself into trouble. I don't like his attitude. Have a look, Joe.
This is a handy gadget you got here, Pete. Make a nice bomb sight.
No, not that apartment window. Joe. I mean the operations room. Look at that pilot.
Oh, sure, I see him. That's Frank O'Connor.
Here's your contact clearance. And listen, Lieutenant, you have an instrument rating, so if you run into any bad weather, don't be proud, turn around and come home. Remember, If you're in doubt, make a 180-degree turn and head back.
Yes, sir.
Did you pipe that fair weather pilot telling me? I can handle this.
Yeah, he can handle this. Sure, nothing to it. A mighty confident lad. Well, he seems to have good flying weather. Not a cloud in sight. Say, take a look at that sky now. Those are mighty interesting cloud formations, all right. Looks like Frank is going to have him a little radio music. Now, with a good radio program, Frank asks for nothing more. Yes, he sure seems to be a jolly character. Those clouds don't seem to bother him. Okay, Frank, but we're keeping our fingers crossed just the same. Just in case. Yep, sure enough, looks like a little bad weather is in the neighborhood. No wonder Frank's losing that happy smile. You remember what your operations officer told you, Frank?
You have an instrument rating, so if you run into any bad weather, don't be proud. Turn around and come home.
Decided to make the turn and head home, but he waited too long.
That fair weather pilot telling me. I can handle this.
Turn around, use your beam. He'd wet in one ear and directly out the other, 'cause there wasn't a thing in between. No, he was bold. He was bold. He was bold. He was bold. Now they're scraping his plane off the trees. So if you want to grow old, better do as you're told. Turn at 180 degrees.
Well, we certainly know where we are now. Young cadets in full parade. The youthful hope and pride of the Army Air Forces. And we mean it. Yes, they're the best young flying blood in the world. But if you think these cadets are good, then you haven't met that fella yet. His name is H.P. Showoff. H.P. is hot pilot to you. He's just waiting for those cadets to get out of his way so he can swing into a little action. Now we'll let you in on something. H.P. is one of the slickest, sharpest daredevils in his outfit. He's going upstairs now, and we ought to get the inside on how flying is really done. Yes, H.P. Showoff is probably the most sensational flyer in the country. And if you don't believe it, just ask him.
Gas on. Switch off. Throttle set.
Gas on, switch off, throttle set.
Now let's just watch this takeoff. diving back on the airport just in case some of the boys didn't see him the first time. Very neat. And what do you suppose is next? Tricks at low altitude? That's dangerous. Guess he's one of those pilots with a bag full of luck. Looks like HP has something else up his sleeve. Yup, those trees down there are a great temptation. He just can't resist it. Hedge hopping is his meat. Ah, going to pick him a few oranges. Then back to tree trimming. And now, just for a laugh, he's dusting off some peach trees. Brother, he's close enough to feel it. HP spots a friend of his flying at L1. Now he's going to pay his pal a return visit just to tease him a little. Look at that. HP has quite a sense of humor. How to win friends and influence pilots. He's in his stride now, riding that Bronco. Just got to say adios. There will now be a brief pause while HP makes up his mind what to do next. No sooner said than done. A nice flip over and he's on his back again. Ah, high tension wires, HP's favorite outdoor sport. Watch him make a bolt for the voltage. Well, hold on to your horseshoe, HP. What a close call. Yup, he's heading for that highway. He sees a sucker down there driving a car. He's going to give that citizen a few thrills. HP can do better than that, so he's going to practice up by riding down the fence and flipping those hills. Oh, we get it. That's where HP's girl lives. Cute, huh? Here he comes. Sweet and low. And she seems mighty proud of her hero. And now, back to his normal position, upside down. And touching things off with a nice, slow roll. Of course, it's just possible that HP is showing off. The girlfriend is all aflutter as HP flies through the air with the greatest of ease. What's this, honey? But he's a great boy for gilding the lily. So, he's going to come back a diving and a rolling. Too bad. He had a bag full of luck. But luck is precious stuff. You've got to use it sparingly.
And HP's show-off was a great pilot. Yeah, he was. He didn't have a chance, Pete. Doing acrobatics at low altitude is a fool's business.
It is now 1300. 1300. Not that anybody's going anyplace.
Well, I'm going somewhere. I'm way past due now. Got to be getting back.
I hate to admit it, Joe, but I'm all steamed up about this safety business.
I hope a lot of pilots are steamed up. So long, Pete.
Oh, Joe, aren't you forgetting something?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Pete. I almost forgot.
Thanks, Joe. I wish we could get your brand up here, but deliveries. Priorities, I guess.
Well, I'll be shoving off.
So long, Joe. Oh, don't forget my housing problem, and keep after those pilots.
Now, look, fellas, let's face it. This is our business. Safety in flying. That's what we've got to concentrate on every second we're in that plane. Okay? Okay. So let's get on that beam and remember. Remember your checklist. Don't touch that throttle until you've checked every item. And Form 1, read it twice, like a love letter. And you won't find yourself taking a dive for that 8-ball. Now, about stretching a glide. The fellas up in pilot's heaven feel this way about it.
Never stretch a glide. 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 Never stretch a glide.
Yeah, that's a golden rule. Never stretch a glide. And before I forget, Mr. Oil Temperature Gauge. Remember him, the fellow with the last word.
Never take off on a cold day until I'm plenty warmed up.
Take the hint, fellas. Learn and live. On the matter of damage to your plane, always report it. If your landing gear is haywire, report it at once to your operations officer. Don't do a McGuire and sabotage your best friend. Carelessness is sabotage. Negligence is sabotage. In war, there's only one place for you to be, on your toes. Remember that when you make a landing. It's all right to relax, but remember, as long as the wheels are turning, you're still flying that plane. Remember Pilot Nonchalant? Now listen to him.
You haven't made a landing until the wheels cease rolling.
Your job is to kill the enemy, not yourselves. If you want to be among the living, watch every instrument, every gauge, your carburetor gauge. Check it constantly and it won't ice up. And here's something else, the Airways bulletin board. Good pilots remember it. Others. To stay alive, you've got to act alive. Don't carry your daydreams into the cockpit. No one but a dope dopes off. Like Joe Pilot with a silly puss. Dreaming about last night's date, you do a lot of things. Like forgetting to lower your landing gear. Learn and live. If you don't, you won't. And you won't if you fly into bad weather against orders. If you can't fly on instruments, remember. Always remember one of the most fundamental rules of safety. If you see the weather closing in, then make a 180-degree turn and head back. And we go all the way back to Adam and Eve for this one, forbidden fruit. But the pilot's forbidden fruit is not an apple. It's acrobatics at low altitude. Remember H.P. Showoff, the pilot that does anything for a thrill, including breaking his own skull. Yes, it's a catastrophe. Just remember that if you're thinking about acrobatics at low altitude. Now, all you fellas with propellers in your pants, don't think that what you've just seen doesn't apply to you, because it does. Every one of them. There's no rule in flying safety that you can ignore. Here's what your commanding general has to say about it.
Pilots and aircraft never seen over Burma, Berlin, or Bataan are daily being lost. Unfired guns, unused bomb racks, these are being lost. Not in enemy lands, but in the quiet American countryside. Pilots, crews, and airplanes must be delivered to battle, not left in smoking heaps in cornfields from California to Maine.
Yes, that's the way our commanding general puts it, and he means it. The responsibility is yours. Fly with safety. That's your #1 job. Fly with safety. Remember it. Do it.